Marvel's Fantastic Four First Steps is now in theaters, so with that, it is now time to go into full spoilers. So that is what I'm going to be doing here for you guys, giving you my full spoiler review for the Fantastic Four, breaking down the things that I liked and didn't like in the movie, and breaking down things like the post-credit scene. So kicking things off, just to reiterate my thoughts, I thought that it was a phenomenal movie, and that Marvel knocked it out of the park, and I came out really loving this movie. And ever since the early 2000s Fantastic Four movies, I just really loved the characters, and even with the several other iterations that we have gotten, I thought that this was the best we have gotten so far. And not just that, but they also gave us a unique and creative atmosphere with its retro-futuristic aesthetic, and all four members of the team shared great chemistry, and they all got their own moments to shine in the movie. And all that just made for a great film, and the best Marvel movie that we have gotten ever since Deadpool and Wolverine. So now breaking down the movie kicks off with Reed and Sue in their house, with Reed looking for medicine while Sue looks at a pregnancy test she took. So after helping Reed find the medicine, she shows him the test, and it is revealed to us that Sue is pregnant and that they have been trying for 2 years, and they were about to give up because with their superhero lives, they thought that this just wasn't in the cards for them, and they would be okay with that ultimately. But that alone sold me on the relationship between Reed and Sue, and I think that Pedro Pascal and Vanessa Kirby have really good chemistry with one another. But before I start talking about Fantastic Four, the movie then cuts us into a quick origin that the movie provides for us, and I think that it is a great way to see the origin through a TV broadcast that tells us all of the basic information that we need to know. You know, like the 4 astronauts went into space, had an accident, were gifted with powers, and we then see some of their adventures together, and that just made me so happy in itself. It was so cool to see Mr. Fantastic use his stretching abilities to fight an orangutan and kick him into the harbor. We also get to see Sue Storm save people with her powers. We also get to see Ben Grimm saving people out of a sinking plane, and even Johnny using his flames to stop the fire. They even recreated the first cover of the Fantastic Four, and also we find out that this is Earth 828, which really does not have a major connection to the comics. It is not like it is the ultimate universe or a popular alternate reality in the Marvel comic. It is just an Earth made up for this. But when I found out that this was in its own world, like this movie's story, I loved it because the story could be more high staked and you'd just be more at the edge of your seat, and you could fear for the characters in the movie, and that all just made the story even better. And the production design was amazing because of all of the tech and the costumes and the city. I love this universe, and I do not know what Marvel has planned after Doomsday and Secret Wars, but since Feige confirmed a reset and reboot, if they want to keep this look, I wouldn't mind at all, and I'd be all for it. And I also really loved the fact that the Fantastic Four were treated like celebrities as well. That was really cool. But back to the story, as Reed and the others were preparing for this baby, this is when Shao comes in and lets them know that their world is marked for destruction, and things just get immediately darker. And I loved that, and the fact that they could balance the fun and campiness while keeping a serious tone within the film, and the serious tone was great, and it definitely provided a lot of suspense in the story. So now I want to talk about when the Fantastic Four go up into space to talk to Galactus. This entire space scene was absolutely perfect. The suspense was perfectly done, and my eyes were glued to the screen, and Galactus was looking so cool. But this scene was also a great showcase of the Fantastic Four's dynamic as a team, and when they are talking with one another, and Ben is hearing the Excelsior and calling out to Reed when he's like, I don't know what to do, Reed. And those moments were so well executed, and everybody had something to do in this scene, with Reed doing things, keeping everybody in line, giving everybody orders, and with everybody quickly and perfectly responding to those orders. You know that they have been doing this for 4 years, and that they're very experienced as a team, and that they really trust one another. But they do witness a planet getting devoured by Galactus, which is a very important scene in my opinion, because now they know that Galactus isn't here to play. He's an actual threat. He's looking to devour Earth. And also, while on the topic of Galactus, his interior design of his ship was so cool. But the scene that we did get with Galactus, it was a good way to show the threat and presence of Galactus, definitely, when we saw him sitting on his throne talking with the Fantastic Four. But this is when he lets them know that the baby could free him, and Shia LaBeouf gives us insight on Galactus, letting us know that he is as important as the stars. He does not want to do this, but he's cursed with this hunger spur of needing to devour planets. And the way he devours these planets I thought were very interesting, because it gets blown up first, then thrown into an incinerator and becomes lava, and through these tubes it gets basically injected into him. But when he notices that Sue is pregnant with Franklin, he realizes that Franklin is a cosmic being that has the strength to take his place so he could be free from this and rest. But obviously the Fantastic Four say no, and they rush back to their ship. And like I said, the super suspenseful space scene continues with them trying to get rid of the Silver Surfer, who is just inches away from grabbing Franklin. But at the same time, they are in this wormhole, and Johnny cannot even shoot Silver Surfer. I love that. And there is this moment where they have to go into this black hole, and this is when the suspense is very, very high and noticeable, because they know if they get sucked into this black hole, it's over and they'll be stuck there for years, if not permanently. And Reed needs to say, "Trust me," to the Thing. And this reminds me of earlier in the film when they established this and they had a heart-to-heart where Reed does weigh in on guilt that they have these powers, and sure, it brought them fame, but he does not forget about Ben, and that happened because of bad calculation. So when they are in space and Ben is depending on Reed, and he has the nerve to turn to Ben and say, "Trust me," and Ben accept, that is just so well written. But the plan works, and the Silver Surfer gets trapped into the black hole, which concludes a very, very awesome space sequence. So now quickly, before I get into any other scenes that happen in the movie, I quickly just want to break down some of the characters in this movie, starting with Reed Richards. Reed Richards this time around is played by Pedro Pascal, and Pedro Pascal does a great job in the role. And the scenes you get with him, Pedro just does such a great job, and he has great chemistry with the other actors and actresses. So every scene with people like Johnny Storm or Sue Storm are great scenes. He also has the heart-to-heart with Ben that I mentioned. That's a great scene. So yeah, Pedro Pascal did phenomenal in the role as Reed Richards. I wasn't one of those people who was questioning why they casted Pedro Pascal. If anything, I was excited because I loved him in The Last of Us. I loved him in The Mandalorian. So I liked Pedro Pascal, and I was excited to see what he'd do in this role. And I was hyped to see him as Mr. Fantastic, and I definitely think that he is the best one we've gotten of all the movies, definitely. And I cannot wait to see what his character does in the future with Secret Wars and Doomsday. So now I want to talk about Sue Storm, played by Vanessa Kirby. Kirby does a great job in the role as Sue Storm. Her powers are definitely very interesting, and the nice speech that she gives the public after they make the controversial decision not to give the baby up and instead to let the universe get destroyed, at least to the people's knowledge. It's a beautiful scene when Sue goes out there and talks to the crowd and changes their mind, because she basically says, "We will protect you, we will find a way to fight this together." She just is associated with several good scenes in the movie, and in the ending, when she helps put Galactus back in that portal, there was some suspense there. She was at one point dead, and then of course her baby brought her back. But yeah, Vanessa Kirby did a really good job as Sue Storm. So now I want to talk about Johnny Storm, played by Joseph Quinn. Quinn does a great job in the role. He brings the normal comedic side of Human Torch that we all know and love from Chris Evans. But yeah, he does his own thing with the role. He's a great character in this movie, great addition, and he does get along with the characters very well. At one point in the movie, he doesn't really get along too well with Pedro Pascal's Mr. Fantastic, but eventually when Reed finally makes those spacesuits he wanted, then he comes around on him, and for the rest of the movie, he doesn't hate Pedro Pascal's Mr. Fantastic. But yeah, Joseph Quinn as the Human Torch was a great casting choice, and even when the trailers were dropping, I was very, very excited to see how Joseph would do in the role, and he did great. So now I want to talk about the Thing in this movie. The Thing is played greatly by Ebon Moss-Bachrach. Hopefully I pronounced that name correct, but he does great in the role, and the Thing in this movie is really an awesome character. He has some awesome moments with the other characters, and even in action, he's great as well. So overall, he was portrayed beautifully, and he was a great character in the movie. And he did look really, really good for being full CGI, because even when I was breaking down the trailer, I knew he would look more like his comic book accurate self because of the eyebrows and stuff. But yeah, it was a good look. So yeah, just to wrap it up, he was a phenomenal character in the movie. So quickly, I also want to talk about Mole Man, played by Paul Walter Hauser. He only gets like one or two scenes he gets like 2 scenes in the movie, but those are the 2 funniest scenes of the movie. And I'm fine with Marvel if they like keep this up, you know, like they keep it mainly serious, but you could have like 1 or 2 scenes where there's some good comedy, because that's what they did in this movie, and I loved it for it, because there was so much seriousness, so much suspense, but at times it had like a lighter tone. So that lighter tone was definitely from Mole Man, and he was just a funny character to see. So now I want to talk about the final battle. Now I first want to mention how great and threatening Silver Surfer was in this movie, and I mention this because in this final battle, or at least the first part of it, where Silver Surfer destroys all the teleportation devices that Reed planned on using to teleport the Earth away from Galactus, Johnny and Silver Surfer talk, and Silver Surfer is reminded of her past life, where she basically became a slave to Galactus to spare her world. But Johnny plays all these sounds of innocent people on other planets begging for mercy who weren't so lucky, who got their planet destroyed and got killed. And this causes her to basically run away and Galactus to come on Earth, which leads to a great final battle, with Galactus's main goal trying to get the baby and doing literally anything to do it. But the Fantastic Four's way of trying to stall and defeat Galactus are all very clever ways. Pedro Pascal keeps like stabbing Galactus with a pole and emptying out his armor, but then freaking Galactus almost rips Mr. Fantastic in half and stretches him, which obviously his power is stretching, but yo, he could have so easily been like just split in half if he wasn't distracted. But yeah, it was very entertaining to see the team up on Galactus, with Galactus basically having the baby in his hand because he eventually does get the baby because he's not an idiot. But then Sue uses her powers to try to force Galactus to put the baby down and to basically be put into another portal that would take him away from Earth. But this drains her powers, and after Galactus is defeated, she basically dies. But this is when the baby gets his time to shine, and he basically resurrects Sue Storm. And it was just a very, very suspenseful and cool scene when he revives her, because I did not know that the baby had that power, but it was so cool. And that's basically where the movie ends. That's the final battle. It was a very action-packed, very awesome final battle. So before I do the star rankings, I want to talk about the mid-credit scene. The mid-credit scene is such a major scene because we follow then Sue Storm with her child, Franklin, with Franklin having been left alone for a second, but then Sue coming back into the room to be revealed that Doctor Doom is holding her child. Wow, that definitely sets up big things for Avengers Doomsday. But as for the post-credit scene, there's nothing really there. It was just like a cartoonish scene that didn't really deserve to be in this movie or was really necessary. But with all that being said, now I want to go into the ranking for this movie, the star system that I usually do with all the movies that I go and review. So without further ado, let's go and get into it. So starting with the star system, action in this movie gets 4 stars. It was very action-packed for the final battle and little scuffles with Silver Surfer in between there. And I forgot to mention it in the final battle segment of the video, but Silver Surfer does basically sacrifice herself to push Galactus into the portal instead of Johnny Storm doing it. So that was a cool little ending scene for the Silver Surfer. But yeah, the final battle was most of the action in the movie. You had a few more other action sequences, but yeah, the action was good in this movie. So now moving on to comedy. Comedy gets 2 stars. There were some funny scenes, especially when it came to Joseph Quinn's Human Torch and of course The Thing. So now for drama, I'm gonna give 4 stars. There was a lot of drama in this movie. Between the stakes during those action sequences, especially in the final battle, the drama was just there. And now finally the suspense gets 4.5 stars because the suspense was wild in this movie. You were just like at the edge of your seat. Any action sequence, especially in that final battle, I was definitely at the edge of my seat, with the Fantastic Four quickly finding so many plans and then those plans getting so quickly shut down. It was just so cool. So now finally for horror, I'm gonna give 1 star. The only horror you're gonna get in this movie is from Galactus. He's a major and scary presence, but other than that, there's no horror. I rate this movie a 10 out of 10, and it does get the Mr. Movie guarantee. But those are just my spoiler-full thoughts on the Fantastic Four First Steps. Thank you guys for watching. See you guys in the next video.